and they call me crazy.
Cartoons have changed beyond the century. From monochrome to color, hand-drawn animation and expensive rotoscopes, to digital, flash, and CG animations. When a time comes that a new cartoon was aired, chances are that it'll last only a pilot, a single season, 3 seasons, or even more. But in my opinion, what really matters on what makes a cartoon memorable are in terms of quality from its characters, the style, the charm, and the overall tone. Throughout the generations, there are some good ones, some all-time classics, and some hidden gems. And then there are the junkyard of mediocre ones. But what we're talking about today are the worst, which it says on the title. In the Worst Cartoons series, we've talked about some pretty bad and abysmal cartoons like Johnny Test, Scaredy Squirrel, Mega Babies, Butt Ugly Martians, and Pixel Pinky. And now we're doing another list for the 3rd time. So this is the top 10 worst cartoons 3. Revenge of the Past and the Rest of the World. When it comes down to a list like this, the 3rd time is the charm. So we will not fuck up the audio this time, and hell, we won't fuck up the entire bland choice of music either. We will bring in the much more older cartoons, older than 1989, and the ones from around the world. But before we start, we do have rules to address. Number 1, I cannot pick a certain season, time period, or episode of whatever show I choose, because I have to pick the entire show itself. Number 2, only cartoons that air on TV must have a running series on it. So that means no animated movies, television films, failed pilots, specials, internet cartoons, or Netflix / any streaming service originals. But television shorts will be allowed on its very list. Number 3, anime, however, won't be on the list. The reason being is plenty, like if I pick one anime because the English dub is considered awful, 4 kids made changes, stupid amounts of unnecessary fan service, or cancerous fan bases. Anyways, we usually stay away from anime.
Fuck you, Sasuke!
Number 4, a simple tradition on this very channel is that the obvious choice won't be very high on this list. Number 5, I may add positives to this show, if they have any. Number 6, 1 cartoon series per franchise, and this applies to previous lists. And number 7, we are limiting ourselves to only 5 cartoons that's from North America this time around. So anyways, this list is in no particular order. And without further ado, let's start this. Time is wasting. So let's start this list with a little short that's been released over 6 decades ago. The Adventures of Patty the Pelican is considered to be one of the lowest budget cartoons ever made, and also one of the earliest of low quality cartoons. So this hand-drawn series of GIFs on loop was created by Sam Singer, a man who's considered to be the Ed Wood of cartoons. So what this show had to offer is muddy pencil quality animation, tremendously horrid writing, abysmal voice acting and lip syncing, and pretty much bad everything else. There's also lack of sound effects and good plot too. This is the 50s equivalent to one of those shitty kids cartoons lurking on YouTube, to be honest. The plus side here is that it only lasted a good 5 to 6 minutes. Anyways, I have to give credit to this guy because he did the entire thing on his own. That includes the voice acting, the animation, the writing, etc. So, how much did this cartoon cost exactly? Nothing more than pocket change, or a few bucks if you had inflation. I mean, this is what you get if you live in the 50s and got some primitive animation machines laying around, and spare change that you can spend on besides dinner for one. Overall, just skip this one unless you're pretty damn curious if I really meant that this was like that shit back then.
Shall we begin?
Well, from the worst kind to the less intolerable. France is an easy choice when it comes down to cartoons, along with the next entry in a bit. The French had their fair share of good cartoons with the likes of x-duckx, Miraculous Ladybugs, and Wacky. However, the French does have their fair share of tripe, like this one here, called x-duckx. Ugh. The title sounds like one of those Xbox Live accounts you made back in the 2000s. Yeah. So let's see here. This Xylem-esque Johnny Test ripoff is an extreme sports cartoon that stars a duel of ducks with ridiculous names. You know, that kind of sounds familiar. So, the adventures of Slacks and Geeks involves them doing random things and make it extreme while living in a Volkswagen bus. Apparently, they just make mundane things extreme, and that's it. Apart with the occasional side characters. Despite this show in French, but I'm actually watching this in German, with no subtitles, the ducks sounded obnoxious and edgy, come to think of it. The character designs are mostly over the top and reminds me of Yvonne the Yukon a bit. The episode plots, despite watching the show in a different language, are simplistic, sometimes ridiculous. The background seems pretty normal in the 90s to 2000 standards, and was it really that bad? Not really, but this ain't my cup of tea. It was one of those cartoons that jumps on the extreme sports bandwagon that's been going on at the time, like EA Sports Big, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Splashdown, Blitzball, Rocket Power, and the X Games. Apparently, I recommend watching it. And to those German viewers out there who haven't watched this dated show, kannst du mir den Dialog erklären? Mein Deutsch ist schrecklich. The United Kingdom is the other easy choice to find a cartoon. The British animation industry are pretty famous to bring out such shows like Thomas the Tank Engine, Wallace and Gromit, Shaun the Sheep, and on Cartoon Network, The Amazing World of Gumball. But the Brits aren't always in gold of terms of quality. So what happens when you throw in a mediocre cartoon and make it last over a decade with some merchandise? Canada was Johnny Test, the US was Teen Titans Go, in the UK, Peppa Pig. Oh, Peppa Pig. I'll make that joke later. This one's kinda special because this show does not only has a couple video games, merchandising, and several awards, this is the only one in this very trilogy has its own fucking theme park. So this itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot on TV is the second cartoon in the trilogy that solely targets the preschool audience. The first one being Dora the Explorer. So this cartoon is the only one on this very list that's still running to this day. Ever since 13 years, to be exact. The art style is awfully childish. The animations are mediocre at best. The voice acting is migraine-inducing. The narrator is awful at his job. The moral and lessons are half-assed. And episodes are usually centered on mundane things like shopping, swimming, and befriending spiders, which we'll get to that later. Also, the character designs, for the most part, shit. With the stick limbs, questionable art directions, and lazy designs. The pigs, however, looked anything but pigs. They looked like walking pink chodes for that matter. For a better understanding, take the pigs from the show. Remove their eyes, nostrils, rosy cheeks, and ears. And then you get walking dicks with massive testicles. And yes, that's a supposed joke. I know there are people who like the show, but to those fans watching this, sorry, I've ruined the show for you. Despite being below average in terms of quality, Peppa Pig, a preschool cartoon, has also faced controversy. No, it's not because of the dick-shaped pigs or the poor moralities. It's due to smaller reasons concerning to the younglings out there. Some of these controversies include characters not wearing helmets or seatbelts during the earlier season/series. And the aforementioned spider episode was actually banned in Australia because, well, they didn't want to teach Australian children to befriend deadly spiders. because Australia is basically the worst place full of deadly life forms and shit. Okay, enough bashing Australia for now. However, Peppa Pig is not the only kids show on this very list with controversy. Oh, yeah.
Before I talk about this show, keep in mind that the 70s and 80s are pretty much the darkest age of animation, where Hanna-Barbera made rehashes or knockoffs of their older shows, Disney films failed to produce anything critically or even financially successful, and cartoon animation itself took a nosedive in quality. One of these shows in this time period is outright bizarre. Fred and Barney meet the Thing. Okay, this seems confusing, but let me clarify that this is not about the Fantastic Four member having a crossover with the Flintstones or vice versa. The Thing and the Flintstones are two different segments shared for the entire 22 minutes of the show. Wrap that shit around your head and wonder why. But we're just going to talk about the Thing. So, this authoritarian parent of Dingo Pictures is dumb, but not in a good way. If you know so much about the Thing, you know that this is outright bizarre when this character is boiled down to a teenager and an accessory poorly named the Thing Ring.
Thing Ring, do your thing!
Anyways, if you're expecting some Marvel villains like the Silver Surfer or Doctor Doom, well, there's none of that. All you get to see is just laughable excuses of villains, cheesiest writing, and slightly mean-spirited protagonists, all of which has made us bear witness to one of the worst Marvel cartoons ever created. Hell, it's even more embarrassing when it has to share a show with the Flintstones, adding insult to injury. Yeah, this is not the only one that has to share a cartoon with another, by the way. Whatever you do, just skip this one.
The Irish, home of the leprechauns, vast landscapes, drunks, and neighbors of the Scots. To be honest, they don't have much cartoons. Most of their cartoons these fine lads do produce are pretty good. One of their least great cartoons centers around the elderly. This is Old Ones, and the title shows how old this is gonna get. As old as that fancy wooden furniture. This is pretty much an adult short cartoon that answers life's greatest questions. What would happen if Sam Singer produced for Cartoon Network in the bloody 2000s, along with 3 other people? So it's a short series about a couple of old ladies, usually talking about their reflections on their past. It seems simple enough, but it's boring. I mean, very, very boring. Yes, I think this fits more on the slice of life genre, but I don't think this clings on to anyone at all. Honestly. The humor itself is something that only a senior understands. The animation may be early Flash, but the characters are mostly stiff. And the voice acting... ugh. It's probably a man horridly imitating an old woman, considering the fact that this is produced and written by 4 guys alone. This is the most obscure cartoon on its very list, even for my standards. But then again, a couple of these choices actually came from a fellow YouTuber named Phantom Strider. So, Old Ones may be short, but you'll be sleeping partway through one of them. I don't have anything more to add for this infomercial for midlife crisis victims, other than that some old people would probably get some sort of kick out of this yawn fest. Anyways, let's move on. Alright, the 80s. The age of synthwave, big hair, Scarface, thrash metal, B-movies, hard drugs, WrestleMania, NES, VHS, and Walkmans. Yet most of their cartoons are nothing but 22-minute advertisements that sell toys. Since the second list, I actually had my eyes upon one of these unlikely advertisements, called Turbo Teen. So the premise of this show is pretty fucking bizarre. Some jockey named Brett is driving his Pontiac at night where he got veered off by a bolt of lightning, leading him to crash into a secret lab where he got shot by some science ray that fused him and his car together.
Wait, I swerved into the path of Dr. Chase's molecular transfer ray, causing me and my car to become one. the incredible Turbo Team.
That seems somewhat cool in hindsight, but only in certain temperatures where he could transform into a car and back. So Brett, along with his ragtag of pals, go on adventures and fight some crime because of course they would. So what about the show itself? Despite being pretty fucking ridiculous and someone's kind of fetish, it's boring. Yeah, don't know why. Doesn't really fit. But, the characters are awfully uninteresting. The voice acting is not that great. The episode plots are pretty meh, and the animation quality is what you expect for a Ruby Spears cartoon. Mediocre. But sadly, this is the best cartoon on this list. Second goes to x-duckx. I also heard that this is more of a kid-friendly version of Knight Rider, except with a Transformers twist, but I haven't bothered to check, because I haven't watched Knight Rider. There's also parodies and references to this one, and even an anime inspired by Turbo Team where the jockey Pontiac hybrid is replaced by a little girl transforming into the most Barbiest of Barbie cars, which is a part of anime shorts where one gets turned into a fucking fighter jet and another one turning into a transformer. Before we talk about number 4, let's talk about Tex Avery. If you haven't heard of him, Tex is one of the greatest cartoonists in the Golden Age. He has made such classics with the likes of Red Hot Riding Hood and A Wild Hare. He also helped create one of the most beloved Looney Tunes characters with the likes of Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, and several others. Although he sadly died in 1980, his animated legacy will live on. Despite this, there's one show that was inspired and paid tribute to Tex Avery, but this one felt rather misleading. This was the wacky world of Tex Avery. So, cartoons have changed a lot since the Golden Age. That means that violence has been toned down, guns in the kids show has become a rarity unless they're toys, lasers, or rocket launchers. And sexualizing women has been diminished in comparison with the 40s counterpart, unless you're the French or the Japanese. Despite all this, at least the Tex Avery style comedy is still there, right? Not for this schizophrenic Looney Tunes that's named after Tex. If you try to watch any of Avery's masterpieces, and then watch through this show's loud and annoying intro, you probably know that something is not right. This show feels like a complete insult to the legend himself. Luckily, these episodes didn't last very long, as they were only compiled to 3 different segments. Kinda like Maggie and the Ferocious Beast, except a little less good in quality. The animation is alright, it has some Billy West and Cree Summer on it, and to me, it would have been a slightly passable show, if it wasn't named The Wacky World of Tex fucking Avery. You'd be better off watching the compilation of the actual Tex Avery cartoons, which was aired at the same time this was around. And that is just heartbreaking. So the Swedish land of Sweden doesn't really have many cartoons like Ireland. The closest thing you could find that's one of their best was Creep School, but that was produced in Canada, France, and Italy. The only other worst cartoon produced in Sweden was 1996 Robin, a series of shorts known for being done by one man, similar to that damn Pelicans show. But unlike Sam Singer, he was hired by the band Radiohead of all things to animate their music video Paranoid Android. However, Robin isn't on the list because there's actually a similar one, but supposed to target to children, and that is Three Friends and Jerry. Thank Phantom Strider again for mentioning this gem. So Three Friends and Jerry is about 4 pill-headed kids doing things. It has a narrator who doesn't tell the audience like they're morons, and the stories are mostly plain average and straightforward, which spans around 7 minutes like the previous entry. The voice acting is mediocre and the writing isn't the worst I've seen. But the background and character designs, as you guessed it, looked awful. Some looked like they did meth or had scurvy by the looks of their teeth, while others looked either ugly or Beavis and Butthead rejects. One character is obviously an Asian stereotype by the looks of her pigtails, eyes, bug teeth, and Simpsons yellow skin. And this was back in 1998, by the way. This illegitimate offspring Mike Judge cartoon has also faced controversy too, but a little worse than Peppa Pig's. You see, this is a kids cartoon on Nick of all places. It was also on Fox Kids too. And they were pushing it too far for its own rating. Have you ever heard of this trope, getting crap past the radar? The trope means that there are instances when anyone who's working on something may sneakily put inappropriate things past the censors, usually innuendos. Animaniacs and Regular Show were famous for these. Three friends and Jerry went a little too trigger happy with this trope and suddenly caught wind after some angry parents found what they saw. And most of it was from the intro alone. 'Cause kids cartoon. I also forgot about that one part of the show that featured a pedophile junkie. Yeah, that threw you off. Pedophiles in a kids cartoon, what were they thinking? I've actually watched several episodes, but I haven't seen one that revolves around this guy. And come to think of it, I don't bother. The real reason why this is number 3, other than the lulz, is that they went a little too edgy for its own good. And edgy doesn't really mean, oh my god, this is awesome. No. That's what happened to Lunatics Unleashed. Nevertheless, I have to say that the next entry makes this one the best shit you ever seen. Fun fact. This is created by the same guy who actually did Robin in the Paranoid Android video, Magnus Carlsen. Apparently he only made 4 television series and 2 films under his belt. And that's pretty much it, according to Wikipedia. Anyways, let's move on.
It's the Nut Shack. It's the Nut Shack. It's the Nut Shack. It's the
No. Yes, it was going to be on here, but this one's worse. Wild Grinders is Nickelodeon's Nut Shack, according to some people. Before you ask, no, it's not about characters rubbing each other off, or living power tools gone rampant. It's about skateboarding. This is a terrible idea from the start because skateboarding culture is already dead at this point. Unlike the Nut Shack, which was created by Filipinos, this was created and produced by a skateboarder and reality TV star Rob Dyrdek, who's also known for starring in MTV shows like Ridiculousness. So, what went wrong? Oh, I'll tell ya. So to watch this rejected Newgrounds entry, you need something to drink. So you went to the kitchen, pull out some whiskey or vodka, and pour it into a small cup. Then you realize that this won't do any justice, so you dump out the drink and pull out a bottle of Clorox bleach. Then after watching 15 minutes of this shit, that bottle you have is already empty because you drank the entire thing 2.5 minutes in. So to put this in the most subtle sense as humanly possible, this is the lowest rated Nickelodeon show and it deserves it. The art style obviously looks like the dollar store version of the Nut Shack. The characters are just as bland and uninspired as the others. And the episodes have their fair share of asinine crap into it, and it's just obnoxious. Its overall quality of a skateboarding cartoon makes Tony Hawk's Boom Boom Sabotage, which is a direct-to-video movie, seemed awesome. This may be questioned if this is a sick prank or a fucking tax write-off, because this is insidiously bad, even as a kid's cartoon from the title to the idea alone. Hell, if I want to watch a cartoon that has skateboarding in it, I prefer the not so great but outdated Rocket Power than this, by a massive landslide while I'm grinding on a tree log, do a 540 kickflip over a creek, nose manual to the nearest Tim Hortons, and airwalk over a Jeep TJ. Wild Grinders is definitely worth skipping, so stay away from this Limp Bizkit Nut Shack atrocity. Alright then, before we jump into the last one, we have some dishonorable mentions. There are some pretty bad cartoons I want to mention, but we need to add a little more variety instead of mostly North American cartoons from the late 90s to the present day. So, to avoid one of those, oh my god, worse comments, I almost have every possible choice that you could think of on this very list. So enjoy. So, what is bad? What's worse than any cartoon on this very list, let alone the two previous ones? Oh, I'm gonna show you bad. I'm gonna show you weapons grade bad. I'm gonna show you bad. Oh, a cartoon that fails on so many levels, I'm offended by it. We are talking about this. Well, that's the thing here. I can't. I just want to find a cartoon that aired on national television with the worst voice acting, the worst characters, the worst writing, and pretty much the worst everything else. And it's not from North America. It is from North America. I already mentioned Patty the Pelican. But that's all done by one man in the 50s running a shoestring budget. If I want to put an American cartoon on here, I've heard about one that's so abysmal it barely even existed called The Royals. But I couldn't find jack shit about this show other than its Facebook and IMDb page. The only evidence I got is a poster image of what's supposed to be the show. Sadly, that one's not on the list because this one feels like an urban myth, or hasn't even started in the first place. But it's still a mystery how this got its own IMDb page, let alone not deleted. Also, no. Trying to search for this, usually mistaken as the miniseries Long Live the Royals and the 2015 TV drama with the same name. And now I'm back with nothing. Well, speaking of which, if I break the rules, I might add the poor quality YouTube Kids videos due to being the absolute corpse pile of quality. Or put an episode of a certain period of a cartoon like Modern Family Guy, or the infamous Ren Seeks Help episode from Ren and Stimpy's Adult Party cartoon. Maybe a shitty TV movie like Rhapsody Street Kids. Oh, how about the one that didn't get its own series like Gen Z? I don't think everyone remembers this shit. Even the creator himself disowned the show's very existence. Now, when we really think about it, everyone has their own different taste in cartoons. Some like Steven Universe because of its story, the characters, and whatnot, while the others hate it due to its fanbase, excessive use of crying, inconsistent art style, and possibly LGBT subject matter, and that's putting it on lightly. Some like Teen Titans Go for their own reasons, while the rest despise it due to be a complete fuck you to its former audience, and clogging up all the time slots. I do have my guilty pleasures though, like Wayside, and The Ripping Friends for its odd comedy which made me laugh as a kid, but some hate it due to its, well, gross out humor. But what about Mr. Pickles? Ugh, don't get me started, I still hate that show. But some probably like it due to its 7/10 rating on IMDb, but around 4/10 on TV.com. The entire list is not really full of under 5/10 ratings on IMDb. Some are actually around 6. But ratings don't really matter too much, do they? They're just trying to make you curious if it's really that good or not. But sometimes the critics and ratings are wrong. Like when they first panned Living Hell out of, well, Last Action Hero for instance, and praised Star Wars The Phantom Menace. Then again, those are their opinions, and their opinions could change over time. Okay Mace, thanks for the unnecessary lecture, but the worst cartoon. What is the first one? What is number 1? What is— okay, shut it. Jumping to conclusions is that the number 1 worst cartoon is completely up to you. Yes, I don't really have much of a number 1 choice, but this time, it's yours. Your choice, your taste on which is your Citizen Kane and amazing bulk of cartoons, not anyone else's. This list may or may already disappoint a lot of viewers due to the blatant cop-out ending, but the Worst Cartoons Trilogy is not really much of a list video about which one's worse than the other, or how come one cartoon is here but not the other. But it's more about subjectiveness on anyone's taste and quality. Then again, I just thought about it when writing the entire script. So if any of you like the shows mentioned here, that's fine. If you don't, that's okay too. You are what you watch. No matter how top-notch, low-grade, savage, intellectual, silly, surreal, clean, gross, Offensive, inoffensive, meme-loaded, slice-of-life, action-packed. Story-based, no story. Original-based, adaptation. Sci-fi, modern, fantasy. Old, new. Charming, repulsive. Bastardized, reimagined. Colorful, bland, monochrome. Pleasant, dreadful. Simplistic, stylized. Rerun, revived, reboots. Playing it safe, or pushing the boundaries of censorship. Everyone has their own tastes. Everyone has their favorite and their least favorite. It's your choice, no one else's. That's our lesson here. So if you like this list or not, I'm cool with that. So in the meantime, my name is Mace the Omnilution, and I'll see you later. Bye.
Riddle me this. I was once called the underrated gem. But over a year later, I am nothing more than an overexposed game. What am I?